Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
You're watching Disruptive Investing, and I thought this week we'd talk about BYD versus Tesla, because there's been a lot of news about BYD overtaking it. You see this narrative pop up in the press lately. BYD is surpassing Tesla. Now look, no question, BYD is a big company that sells many vehicles into a huge auto market, China. And BYD is even breaking into some new markets.
But is this true? Is BYD surpassing Tesla?
Well, sure, if you want to limit what you look at. BYD does sell more vehicles than Tesla, and BYD does have more employees than Tesla. So let's dive into the numbers and see what we find, shall we? First of all, I want to thank Nicholas Nilsson14 on X for his excellent research. Let's start with revenue. So if we look at 2023, Tesla had about $97 billion in revenue, and BYD had $85 billion. So as Nicholas points out, BYD has very little software capability. So when Tesla finally cracks FSD, which I think all of us watching know is going to be the case, possibly it'll be FSD beta version 12, Tesla will be turning on a huge revenue stream with super high margins that BYD does not and probably will not have. So let's look at net profit. Revenue is kind of close. Mm-hmm. Is it close profit-wise? So Tesla had about $9.5 billion, 9.7% margins there, and BYD had $3.5 billion, about 4.1% margins.
Okay, so not much to say here. I mean, the numbers kind of speak for themselves, don't they?
So let's go on to employees. 2023, Tesla had about 140,000 employees. BYD had 631,500 employees. Now, as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, if you want to use the number of employees as a metric to compare whether a company is surpassing another, in the past, you may have been able to use employees. The headcount is kind of a big number, but today, it's actually a weakness, in my opinion, especially since, like Nicholas points out, BYD has human employees doing many things that Tesla has robots doing. All right, so let's go to factories. 2023, Tesla had 8, 7 of which were outside of China. BYD had 30, 8 of which were outside of China. Now, if factories is your go-to metric, then yes, BYD is winning. But as we'll see in a minute, it's not a very useful metric.
All right, but let's go to like total vehicles made in 2023.
Tesla had about 1,800,000 and BYD had over 3 million.
Okay, BYD made over 1 million more vehicles than Tesla in 2023. I guess BYD is the winner.
But hang on. How many BEVs, battery electric vehicles, did both companies make?
I don't know.
Total BEVs made in 2023. Tesla had 1.8 million because all of their cars are, same number. BYD had 1.5 million. So all those articles you saw that said BYD is surpassing Teslas and EVs, that's because they're counting hybrids. And I don't count hybrids because they're not the same.
I see. So Tesla made almost 250,000 more BEVs than BYD. And I mean, BEVs are what matters going forward.
Exactly. Right. Everyone admits this is what the market is going to be. They're pretty much trying to get out of ICE. And by the way, a hybrid has an ICE motor in it. So yeah. Going back to those employee numbers, though, let's look at revenue per employee for both BYD and Tesla. So if we take revenue divided by the number of employees, Tesla has $692,000 per employee in revenues. BYD has $135,000 per employee.
So Tesla has more than 5 times the revenue per employee.
And probably more importantly, how about profit per employee? Tesla gets $67,000 in profit per employee. BYD gets a little over $5,000 per employee.
So Tesla has 12 times the profit per employee.
How about vehicles made per employee? So if we look at Tesla, they make 12.86 vehicles for every employee. BYD makes 5.
So one employee on average at Tesla makes 2.5 times more vehicles.
That's not how it works.
But Greg, how's that one?
But it shows you that for every employee you're hiring, you're not really putting out more cars if you're BYD. You're putting out way less. How about average selling price, or ASP, per employee? So Tesla in 2023 had an average selling price per employee of $45,600.
And BYD was $24,200.
Okay, so by the numbers, I find it hard to say that BYD is surpassing Tesla unless you think that the numbers of cars made, the number of factories, or the number of employees are the numbers to look at. That to me is kind of like if you were like a sports fan and you're like, today on the field, this team is missing a player, so the other team is going to win. They're the best team.
Or if it's like, but listen, you're not looking at the on-base percentage, okay? This player, sure, he doesn't get a lot of hits, okay? And sure, he doesn't get a lot of runs, but he gets on base.
Otherwise, I think it's clear that it's misleading to say that BYD is surpassing Tesla. As Nicholas makes a couple other really important points. Number one, BYD isn't focused on full self-driving in the near term. They may license the tech from somebody in the future, But those of us who know that FSD is going to disrupt the auto market know that this is the game changer that nobody understands at the moment. Number two, BYD mainly sells small to medium cars of fairly low quality and low safety features in China. Tesla sells high quality, small to now big vehicles in China, Europe, and North America.
But doesn't BYD sell cars in Europe?
BYD has tried to sell cars in Europe, but out of the 15 countries in Europe that they have sold in, BYD has only sold 13,816 cars in 2023. For a giant company, that's nothing. And if BYD is going to sell cars in North America, they're going to be fighting trade tariffs, increasing shipping costs. They're going to need to solve having really no service network and no sales facilities, not to mention that they'll need to design, engineer, and build cars with better safety features, and then complete all of the US federal safety testing, which is time-consuming and expensive. And lastly, since BYD has built their manufacturing model on cheap labor, how are they going to pivot to robots and more expensive labor in places like North America and Europe if they want to open factories in these new markets? Because look, I have nothing against BYD. I'm glad that they make more BEVs than ICE cars. They get it. They have been moving in the right direction for a while now. They moved quickly into the electric bus market, and they've done quite well for themselves in that niche. But as Elon even posted, Tesla is an AI robotics company that appears to many to be a car company. And since you've watched to the end, then you obviously get it. Tesla is disrupting on so many levels.
From vertical integration in their auto building business, to AI and full self-driving, to Tesla as an energy company, to designing and soon manufacturing robots, to Tesla disrupting the entire insurance industry.
Old school financial analysts don't get it. They keep thinking of Tesla as an auto company and saying daft things like Roth Capital analyst Craig Irwin said a couple weeks ago. I'm bearish because I see it as egregiously overvalued. When we look at Toyota as a benchmark, there's nothing Tesla has that Toyota does not. Competition in China is overtaking them. It's going to be a tough 2024. And of course, he has an $85 price target for Tesla. And by the way, we're not financial advisors. Don't take our advice on whether to buy or sell stocks. Do your own research.
And again, this whole BYD is surpassing Tesla narrative is just something that somebody can cherry pick.
It's FUD. Yeah, it's basically so that it'll take Tesla down a notch, take them off their high horse. Oh, so they're no longer the leaders. As we've just shown, of course, you can find a metric from almost any company that'll beat some other company's metric. For instance, you could say that VW has more auto dealerships than Tesla. Great. It does.
You could say that BMW sells more sausages to employees than Tesla. And that's a metric that a lot of people care about. But I do think that it's just this misleading idea that BYD is somehow going to surpass Tesla when they are not a global car company at the moment.
No.
Sure, they are technically global because they technically sell in Europe, but they're not selling in Europe in any of the numbers that Tesla is.
Right. Tesla has a factory in China, the only auto factory in China that is not co-owned by the Chinese government. They somehow, I don't know how Elon jujitsu'd it, got his way. So they're in the Chinese market, they're in Europe, and they're in the United States. They're a global car company, and yet everyone wants to be like, yeah, but everyone's going to catch up. And they've been saying that for years, and they haven't caught up. And now when they're trying to say that BYD has surpassed them, yeah, technically they make more cars just like Toyota does. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean they're surpassing Tesla.
Right. So if you want to stay ahead of the analysts and truly understand disruption, please consider subscribing to Disruptive Investing. It really helps us out.
And if you don't regularly watch our weekly news show, Tesla Time News, which is over on our Now You Know channel, please consider checking it out.
We just published our 383rd weekly show in a row.
And consider joining our investor club on Patreon at patreon.com/nowyouknow, where we bring you a ton of value with our weekly exclusive Investor Club bonus videos. We also have our exclusive Investor Club Slack and our exclusive live streams with founders and CEOs of disruptive companies.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on Disruptive Investing.